We traveled Vietnam in 14 days under £500 per person. In this video, we are not only going to share all the things you need to know to stick to this budget, but also things we learned from our trip, things to avoid, and expensive scams that cost us a lot of money.
Within the £500, we'll be including accommodation, food, transport, and activities. And no, this video is far from staying in hostels, but it's also not for luxury stays. To start off, we want to quickly mention visas in Vietnam. If you have a UK passport, you have visa-free entry, which is Max's case.
On the other hand, Caro had to pay because her passport unfortunately was not in the visa exception countries list. And if the price hasn't changed by the time you are watching this video, it should be around $25.
Depending on how much you spend on hotels, this may actually be your most expensive cost throughout this trip, unless you fall for the scam that we fell for. But we'll talk about this later in the video. Right, now let's actually get into the trip planning and share with you how to plan the best 14 days of your life in Vietnam for under £500.
Before we forget, this video will be focusing on places we recommend visiting within the 14 days, which are Hoi An, Da Nang, Phong Nha, Ninh Bình, Sapa, Halong Bay, and finally Hanoi.
In all of these cities, you will find really nice accommodation for less than £20 per night. And these places won't look like hostels. They will be pretty memorable stays. Remember, Vietnam is one of the most affordable countries in the entire world.
A platform that we recommend using to book your stays in Vietnam is booking.com. Here, you can find a lot of different choices and hopefully find the perfect stay for you. Remember that at the end of the day, you are in Vietnam to learn about the country, so realistically, would you even spend much time in your hotel besides sleeping?
Probably not. On the screen, you will see the hotels we recommend in each of the cities that we mentioned. They are nice and also they are well located, and you need to be well located because this is going to allow you to have all the fun right next to you.
Okay, as we are recommending quite a few places, transport and how to get to each city will be really important. For transport, we specifically recommend using One2Go. On this platform, you can find all the buses, timetables, prices, and you can actually book your trips online, which is definitely better because English is not widely spoken.
And to be honest, traveling by bus is the best option under this budget, but don't get me wrong, buses in Vietnam are in a whole other league. You have two types. The cheaper version has 3 rows of bunk beds. We tried both of them and this type of bus was a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. We didn't feel comfortable enough to sleep because it just felt very tight and there was no privacy.
Just imagine sleeping in a bed and just having 10 people feeling like they're staring at you.
On the other hand, the VIP buses had really spacious beds with curtains to create that privacy, and these buses, to be honest, were really worth it. One of them even had massage.
It's also great because they operate during the night, so essentially you are not only saving money by not spending on a hotel, but you're also traveling while sleeping. So I guess it's a win-win.
And even though the name VIP buses is probably going to sound like they're really expensive, they're actually really well priced at around £15 to £25, but it obviously depends where you are going.
We've covered transport from city to city, but what about transport once you reach your destination? Depending on where you are, we recommend using different things. For example, if you are visiting Hoi An, we recommend a mix of Grab and renting a motorbike for a day or so. In case you don't know, Grab is an app like Uber, and you can get rides on motorbikes, which are not only the most affordable, but in our opinion, the most efficient because you get to skip all the traffic.
But renting a motorbike is actually really fun, and it just makes more sense if you've planned several activities throughout the day.
Yeah, because in that case you get to save that money that you'll be spending in a taxi here, a taxi there.
Really important though, if you want to ride a motorbike in Vietnam, you have to check the regulations before, because in our case we were required to have an international driving license. I don't know why I said we, I don't drive, but it's actually really easy to get one, at least in the UK.
We never got asked for it in Vietnam, but if the police had stopped us, legally we are required to have it. Also, Vietnam is notorious for having some of the most intense roads in the entire world, so make sure you feel comfortable riding a bike. Here's a good tip: if you are planning to rent a scooter, a good price for a 125cc should be around 130,000 Vietnamese dong per day, which it may sound like a lot, but the actual conversion is about £3 to £4, which is very reasonable.
Anything above that, I'm gonna have to say you are probably overpaying. But of course, don't worry if you don't drive, because there are places where realistically walking is more than fine. For example, Sapa or Hanoi. So we've talked about accommodation and transport. Now let's talk about probably one of the best things in Vietnam. The food! If you love food, Vietnam is going to be a paradise for you because the food is delicious, affordable, and the portions are even better.
Unlike hotels and transport, we don't know of any platforms that we can provide to find good spots, but we do have tips on how to find the most delicious places with the best prices.
Vietnam is like any other country in the world. You have touristic spots which, although they might cook local food, is probably not the most authentic, nor will you find the best prices. First important tip to find the best restaurants: talk to your hotel receptionist or to the host of your accommodation.
Ask them where they eat and what local spots they recommend. They usually live in the area and they will know better than anyone else the best places. This is a quick approach, but if you want the more explorer approach, go for a walk, and while you explore the city or the town that you are in, look at the restaurants. If they have English menus, it's probably not the most local spot. But a good way to know if they have the best food and the best prices is if all the locals are eating there.
We use this approach all the time and it worked like a charm. We were basically eating for about £2 per person, and towards the end of every meal we basically wanted to throw up. But in a good way, because it was just really good and our instinct was, let's finish this humongous portion that has been served to us.
Speaking about it, I'm missing it so much.
The fourth main expense in Vietnam will be activities. Activities will be part of your schedule in some cities, and you will need to pay for these activities to actually experience the culture better or even explore more of the stunning landscapes. For example, in Phong Nha, you need to try a cave experience because in this town, you can find some of the biggest caves in the world.
Now, visiting the massive caves will be very pricey, but there are other cool experiences you can do visiting smaller ones that are really fun and very reasonably priced. For example, we visited the dark cave, which felt really scary, but in the dark cave, we did our first ever mud bath, which was really cool.
We do have a platform for this one, and the best platform to book activities in Vietnam is Get Your Guide. And we have left all the links to the platforms we have mentioned in the description, so don't forget to check them out after the video, and definitely don't forget to like this video if you are enjoying it. Thank you. We do want to highlight 2 activities in Vietnam you must try and how to make them better. In Da Nang, you have the famous bridge with the hand, and this is pretty much part of a theme park. It's not a theme park as such, but you need to pay for an entry ticket, which will allow you to enter this park. Anyways, this is Bana Hills, which is where the bridge is located. Basically, when we arrived, it was quite late, around like 3 p.m. or so, and we didn't know this, but if you enter the park in the afternoon, the ticket price is discounted. And you also get a buffet with a drink included in the price.
It was so amazing finding out this surprise in person.
And it actually turned out to be so much cheaper than the standard ticket, but also we ended up having so much fun.
We do recommend you check out the video we did. It's right now appearing on the top right corner because we detail all the information and we also show you the buffet, which was absolutely amazing. The second activity, which is a must for us, is a hike in Sapa with a tribe. It was one of the most amazing activities we've ever done. We hiked across the mountains, the beautiful rice fields, and beside the stunning landscapes, we ended the day in the house of the guide, which is part of this tribe, drinking happy water.
And if you don't know what that is, it sounds weird, but it's just an alcohol made from rice and it's super popular in Vietnam.
Oh, and Carol also made ink with plants, which is such a unique thing to do because, well, it's really eye-opening because in this tribe, they dyed their handmade clothes with these plants.
And to be honest, it just felt really special to get to do that. And so many other people were like, oh, why are your hands like this color? And I explained to them and they were so surprised.
All right, before we talk about how we got scammed and things that may blow up your budget, let's recap how much we estimate spending per day.
On accommodation, a reasonable amount would be £15. On transport though, this wouldn't be consistent, so let's say £4.
Bear in mind that some days you may not spend money on transport, but maybe on other days you will travel more.
On food, you can easily eat comfortably for £6 to £8 per day. And remember, if you're picking the right restaurants, we're talking about big portions. So far we're estimating £27. But we are still missing activities.
This is a bit more complicated because it's very unrealistic to assume that you'd be doing an activity every single day. But I think it's fair to average about £7 per day. So in total, we are estimating about £34 per day, which for 14 days, it means £476.
Quick maths. Look, you even have £24 extra.
There we go, make it rain, make it rain.
Perfect plan. Right, so let's get into the interesting story that you've probably been waiting to hear. How did we lose hundreds of pounds in a common scam in Vietnam? So, talking about this, PTSD. In Hanoi, we decided to book an apartment for a few nights. We started the day in Halong Bay, everything was going okay, and we arrived in Hanoi at pretty much 9 in the evening. We got a taxi, arrived at the apartment, super excited to just get a good night of sleep. But here's the interesting part. When we opened the door, it was the worst accommodation ever. Now, this is gonna sound really dramatic, but basically, the apartment was completely different to what we booked online.
When we initially booked it, it was on the 6th floor with huge windows, natural light, and it was a very decent looking apartment. But when we got there, it was totally the opposite. A ground floor apartment with no windows, hardly any light, and super humid. It had a really strong smell. And later, we found out that this is a very common scam in Hanoi. Booking an apartment and getting something completely different.
And the worst part is that even though we provided all the evidence to the booking platform, they never refunded us for the extra money that we had to spend. So the lesson here is to just make sure you do as much research as you can and only book places that have lots of reviews from different people.
It was really sad because after spending hours on the phone with the booking platform, nothing was resolved. So at around midnight, we had to book another hotel.
So yeah, this is a mistake we made that hopefully doesn't happen to you.
And please feel free, to message us on Instagram if you want any advice or recommendations, because we are always more than happy to talk to you guys.
Finally, let's talk about things that may blow your budget if you are not careful.
First, ATM fees. The best advice is either get a credit card without ATM fees or to exchange all the money in advance at once. This is a good idea because it will allow you to set a limit to your budget and probably stick to it.
We did already mention this point, but eating in touristic restaurants is definitely gonna quickly eat up your budget. And let's be honest,
I see what you've done there. Eat up your budget.
That was so good. But let's be honest, why would you even want to eat in touristic places?
This point is very specific, but throughout Vietnam, there's a company called Sun World, which has different parks. For example, that hand bridge that we mentioned earlier in Da Nang is owned by Sun World. These parks are very, very touristic and not very affordable compared to the average prices of activities in Vietnam.
We, for example, went to the one in Da Nang and Phu Co, and we said no more after that because they have others in Sapa, Halong Bay, and so many other cities in Vietnam, and they are all so freaking expensive. So basically, if you want to stick to your budget, don't go to them or just pick like one or two maximum.
Yeah. The last piece of advice we can give you to not blow your budget is to try and reduce your alcohol consumption. If you are like us and you don't drink alcohol, then that's great. But alcohol is probably the most expensive drink you can purchase in Asia.
But most importantly, you need to be extremely careful with buying really cheap alcohol because you just don't know what is inside and you don't know how safe it's going to be. So the best thing is if you're gonna get alcohol, just make sure it's clothes and a trusted brand or something.
Well, to the main question of this video, is it possible to only spend £500 for 2 weeks in Vietnam?
The answer is yes, but let us know in the comments how much you spent during your trip to Vietnam.
And don't forget to like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you don't want to miss amazing travel tips and recommendations.
Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Oh, yeah, I've been wanting this forever.